Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this week I'm joined by MACANINCH and Tommy Sheridan. Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind, Tommy Sheridan. It's been ages since you've been on. And MACANINCH, first appearance, It's your debut.
It is.
And it's great to have you here. Now, I always remember, you know, these interviews that you get, the Q&As you get, Tommy, and people say, who would play you in a film? It's something that people always ask you, right? And I find this intriguing that Cal has now played you, Tommy.
To be fair, I think Cal will confirm. I did say to him, so was George Clooney not available? But I first met Cal last February, after the producers of the ITV drama, which starts on Wednesday night, The Hack, based on this book, Hack Attack by Nick Davis. Joe McWilliams, one of the producers, had asked me if I would meet with Cal, because Cal was going to play me in an episode, episode 5 of the show, where I think there's a set piece based in the Glasgow High Court trial of myself, where I called Coulson as a witness, and Cal plays me in the drama, basically examining Coulson. So he asked to come and meet me, and it was quite weird, because I'm saying to myself, with the idea, I'm meeting a guy who's about to portray me in a film or in a drama, and I'm saying to myself, how do I act? I mean, do I try and act unnaturally? Do I try and be something I'm not? So I hope that Cal will agree that it was a very interesting meeting. I think we ended up spending a few hours together. He brought some lovely biscuits and real coffee to the house, and we had a chat. And as I say, it was a weird experience, Paul John, because I know that this guy's going to go and play me, and I'm saying to myself, I hope he plays me well. I'm sure you did, Cal. I'm sure you did.
I don't know. I've not seen it.
I've not seen it yet. I was just talking about I'm really intrigued with the craft of acting. I think it's an incredible thing. And when I'm watching movies, I sometimes actually probably zone out a wee bit for the story and look at what they've done maybe to get to the point where they can play the part. And I read a great book on De Niro and his famous method acting, and when he was playing Jake LaMotta, he moved in with him for 3 months to try and get his mannerisms and, you know, the way that he held himself, the way that he pronounced words. And he actually said, I want to know what direction does he stir his tea in, right? So what lengths did you go to, Cal, to become Tommy?
What did I do? Well, I watched as much as I possibly could online. Tommy's mannerisms, his voice. And then when I got to meet him, as you said, we spent about 4 hours together or something. And then it was a different person, because it wasn't the public performer that you see online. And he was very open, and he talked about the phone hacking stuff, and he talked about Coulson, and he talked about everything that happened to him, the injustice that happened to him. And I was very taken with it and very moved by it, to be honest. And I hope you talk about some of that today. But when you actually play it, I didn't want to just do an impersonation. But everyone in this piece is playing somebody who's real. But I only had 2 days filming. So the likes of David, for instance, who's playing the main journalist, he had loads of time to figure out what mannerisms he copies and what he brings himself, because ultimately you've got to play a scene. So it's got to be authentic in the scene. If you spend too much time trying to impersonate someone, then you risk losing, you know, the authenticity of the scene. So to be honest, I just threw myself into it. I don't know how it's come out because I've not seen it, but hopefully I achieved some sort of authenticity with it.
Yeah. Now, as Cal says, go back to these times, Tommy, right? The phone hacking scandal, when you think about it, different world, really, when you think about how things operated. But there are so many similarities where you talk about surveillance, and you talk about, earlier on I mentioned the fact that you say something, later on that night you could be on Facebook and there's an advert popping up for the subject you spoke. And, you know, there's always this paranoia. But back in the day where you were a victim of this, talk us through that, Tommy. What? Because a lot of people think this was a celebrity thing, but obviously it was a lot more sinister than that, wasn't it?
Paul John, there were thousands of victims, literally thousands of victims. Some of them were very high profile, some of them were celebrities, lots of them were politicians, but loads of them were ordinary people. I mean, let's home in on the disgusting fact that these bastards targeted a missing schoolgirl in 2002, Millie Dowler, March of 2002. And by the way, that gives you an indication of how far back this goes, because it all blew up around about 2008, 2009. It had been going on for a decade earlier. And they targeted people because they wanted shortcuts to stories. They wanted to cheat. They didn't give a toss about the law. This is what gets me. Nick talks about in the book how the News of the World portrayed themselves as the moral guardians. Oh, we'll keep the politicians in check. They were a bunch of shysters. They were criminals, and they ran a criminal enterprise. The select committee, the House of Commons select committee that investigated the whole situation, they concluded that it was an industrial level enterprise of phone hacking. That's how bad it was, right? At the heart of this beast that apparently was our moral guardian, was breaking the law every single day. And from my point of view, as I was a target of News of the World, who targeted me way back in 2004, I had a wonderful 7-page piece done on me in 2004, followed up by a 6-page the following week. And I was supposed to have had an affair with a woman I'd never met. I was supposed to have had all sorts of kinky sex with this woman that I had never met. Fortunately, she told stories about doing things with ice on my chest, which my wife immediately recognised wouldn't have been possible because my chest was so hairy that it wouldn't have worked. So the lies she told actually helped me. But the truth is that was very, very uncomfortable for me. It was an invasion of privacy, and it was distortions, and it was lies. And as the story unravelled, as you pulled the threads, it turns out they were hacking my phone. Turns out they were hacking my mum's phone. They were hacking my sister's phone. They were hacking my brother-in-law's phone. My mum got a payout. My brother-in-law got a payout. My sister got a payout. I got a payout. I didn't want the payout, Paul John. I wanted to go to court. I wanted my story in court. I wanted the truth to come out in court. But they have a piece of law down in England called Section 36, whereby if they offer you enough money and you refuse their offer and go to court and get less money in court than they've offered, you end up having to pay all the costs of their side, right? So you're in for about $1 million.
Yeah.
They hold you over a barrel. And that's what they did with people. They bought them all off. Thousands and thousands of people, hundreds of millions they've spent stopping the truth coming to court. That's what they did. They spent billions to stop the truth coming to court, which was that it wasn't a rogue reporter, which is what Coulson said at my trial. Oh, it's just one rogue reporter. Rogue reporter up my arse. And what Nick Davis has uncovered in this fantastic book, and hopefully the story, the drama will uncover it, is there was no rogue reporter. It was an industrial enterprise of criminality. And that's what these people did. And they picked on ordinary people, victims of Iraq, victims of the London bombings. This wasn't just about celebrities. People say, oh, it was just Hugh Grant, it was just Sienna Miller, it was just Jude Law, it was just David Tennant, it was just Robert Carlyle, two of the actors that are actually in it, both of whom were victims of the hacking. No, it wasn't just them. It was ordinary people that these people criminally secured information on them by hacking their phones. And News of the World was forced to close, brilliant, but it's been replaced by the Sun on Sunday, and it's the same beast under a different name.
It is, Tommy, and I know a lot of the public, it was the Millie Dowler case that, you know, they thought to themselves, this is so sinister. Because, and this isn't right, but a lot of people might have the view that, oh, it comes with the territory if you're a celebrity, you know, but that invasion of privacy took it to another level. And in relation to some of the names you've mentioned, I've got to come back to you, Cal, in relation to this 7-part drama. The cast is quite incredible, isn't it? The quality of the cast. Talk us through that, because I was reading about it this week, and you're going to have to educate me on what part Gordon Brown plays in this. But I was looking at them, this is what I do, I'm looking, Dougray Scott, he's a Hibby playing a Leith Rovers fan, right? At least Cal's a Celtic fan playing a Celtic fan, brilliant. Robert Kyle, I'm not sure, Partick Thistleton, do you?
Partick Thistle, apparently, yep.
Yes. So I don't think so.
That's what he says.
Secret's out.
I don't think so. That old chestnut.
Oh, well, there you go then.
Phenomenal cast though, Kyle, isn't it? Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. I actually knew the director before. I'd worked with him twice before that. There was a thing called oh God, what was it called? He did Time, prison drama, which was award-winning, and Des was about Dennis Nielsen. He directed that as well, and I was offered a part in Des, David Tennant again playing Des, and just before Christmas, and I went down to do it, and it wasn't a massive role. But I met him for the first time. I hadn't auditioned for it. I met him for the first time, and he treated me like I was playing the lead. And then I noticed about his behaviour on set. He treated everyone the same.
Brilliant.
And I remember coming home to my wife and saying, "I hope Des is brilliant, because the way this director is behaving is the way every director should behave, and everyone should behave on a film set." And then Des came out and it was brilliant. And then out of the blue, he asked me to do Time, which was do Time. And he asked me
Did I play the
part of he asked me to be part of this thing, Time, written by Jimmy McGovern.
Right.
Which is, it's just quality from start to finish. And then he asked me to do Sherwood. And I said, hold on a second, you promised me a big role. You're giving me one scene in Sherwood. And I said, I can't do it. Come back to me with a decent role. Anyway, he comes back to me with this one. And I was so intrigued by it. And of course, as you say, the cast list was just phenomenal. So just being part of this is quite an extraordinary thing. So I had to do it to play you, to get to meet you. And I thought the project was definitely worth being part of.
I remember months ago, Tommy, we were talking about this, the potential for, I don't know at the time if we were talking about it being a drama or a movie, but we were chatting about it. How did you feel in relation to, as I said before, someone actually playing you? I mean, are you going to be watching that from that perspective? Because as Cal says, it's not an impression. It's about trying to get the inner workings of Tommy Sheridan, the soul of Tommy.
I talked to Cal before the podcast, Paul John, about a situation for a few years back where I had the pleasure of interviewing Jerry Conlon for a radio show that I was doing. And of course, Jerry was part of the Guildford Four, and that whole injustice, British injustice. And I was discussing with him the wonderful film In the Name of the Father, which to me, I said to Cal, it doesn't matter how many times I watch it, I cry, because the injustice of it is so real and so raw. And it was based on Jerry's book. Mm-hmm. And Jerry didn't like it. He was disappointed because he didn't think it portrayed his story accurately. And I think that's something I have to bear in mind, because it doesn't matter what your personal story is. You always have to remember that this is a quilt that's been patched together of different stories. Mm-hmm. It's not your own story. And that, In the Name of the Father, managed to bring in the Maguire 6, the Guildford 4, sorry, the Maguire 7, the Guildford 4, the Birmingham 6, all into one story. Of course, it's not one story, but that's what Jim Sheridan did in terms of what the direction was. And it was an absolutely phenomenal film, but Jerry was disappointed in it. So undoubtedly, I'll watch Cal's portrayal of me and I'll think, oh, but wait a minute, they've not got the context right, and oh, but what about that question? Oh, why have they not featured this bit? There are bits that I think should feature. I mean, there's a wonderful example of the court case where I'm putting to Coulson, you ran a criminal enterprise. That's what the House of Commons Select Committee said. It was a criminal enterprise. That's what you did. Phone hacking was rife. And he turns around and says to me, only in your parallel universe, Mr. Sheridan, right? Now, I think that's a fantastic quote, but I doubt very much it'll be in it. But there's an example where I'll say, oh, they've used that wee bit, but why did they not use that bit? So, of course, if you want to hyper-analyse it and dissect it, you'll get to that. But what do I think? I think it's fantastic that the story's being told. Again, the story's being told. These people are criminals to their core. And they got away with it for decades because of the collusion of the government and the police. And that's the important thing. The police collusion here was phenomenal and disgraceful. I hope it makes people open their eyes and say, dirty bastards, how did they get away with this for so long? And therefore, I'm sure whatever portrayal's there and whatever part of it, it's only a small part, it's only episode 5 that's portrayed, I'll be over the moon with it.
But there's also, I mean, when I watch myself and things, sometimes I watch it and I go, oh, why the fuck did I make that choice? That's terrible. Then I can watch it again and go, oh, actually, it's all right. You know what I mean? So you might watch it and go, oh, that's terrible. And then go back to it later and go, that's actually okay. Or, to be honest, other way around, I can watch things and go, oh, I'm all right in that. Watch the second time and go, fuck, what was I doing? What was I doing? Well, I remember once I watched something that my Irving Welsh thing called Wedding Bells, Channel 4, my wife was in. And I'd watched a version of it, and I was a bit drunk, and I watched it, and I went, oh, babe, it's terrible, it's terrible. Then the next day we were going to a screening, and I went to the screen, and I didn't have a drink this time, and I watched it, and I was like, it's genius, genius. But I stand by it, it's brilliant, it's a brilliant film.
You know,
Wedding Bells.
on that, Cal, I love movies, I love film, right?
Yeah.
And I watched one with my missus a while back called Calibre.
Yeah.
With yourself and Tony Curran.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of it. I think I must have watched it on Prime on Netflix. And I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's a good wee film, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I know that you were in Mayflies with Tony and Matt and Compson, but Tony's been on Acsom a few years ago.
Yeah.
And everybody I'm mentioning seemed to
Did he
be
not
Celtic
mention it?
supporters. You never mentioned Calibre. Great movie, great wee film.
Yeah, so low budget film, set in the Highlands, but we filmed it in the Borders, I think. Low budget, first 2 weeks were night shoots, it was horrible. And at one point, these two guys appear on set, don't know who they are. And so you always get hold of the third or something, going, who's these guys? Who's these guys? Oh, they're investors in the film. All right, okay, cool. Hi, how you doing, guys? Nice to meet you. Next night, they're dressed in costume and they're in the scene. And one of the boys is English, one of the boys is American. And they're trying to do Scottish. They give them lines. And we're all like this. Oh man, we thought the film, we thought it was a tough shoot anyway, but now it's like, it's a fucking disaster, you know? But very cleverly, they got the guys and not as part of the main actors and shot them separately doing the lines so they can just cut them out, which of course they did. Anyway, so the film gets made, we finish the film, and Netflix hear about it, they see it, and they put an offer to the director to buy the film, so it doesn't go into the cinema. Right. So the director's and producer have got to make a decision on Netflix, with the millions of people watching, possibly, or a week in the cinemas. So they choose Netflix, and it goes out, and then Stephen King sees it and tweets about it to his 5 million followers.
Wow.
And I remember the producer of the film tweets, "My job is done."
I am brilliant.
Yeah, so if you watch it, turn the lights out, watch it in the dark.
Right.
It's a cracking
Halloween?
Halloween film?
No, it's not a horror film, but there's a scene in the film. I read the script. I was reading the script, pretty good. But this thing happens quite early on in the film, and I read it. I went, "Fucking hell!"
Wow.
Like that, and I thought, if they get that moment right, they've got a film.
It's horrific.
And they do.
You mentioned Stephen King. Now, he famously doesn't like The Shining. So if you're talking about
Good point.
vision,
Good point.
how it
Yes.
is on the screen.
Yes.
So, and I think it's the greatest film of all time. So it's all about opinions. I
It's
love The
good.
Shining.
So, not about greatest of all time, but it's a good film.
Yeah.
That's a good debate. That's a brilliant debate. Tom.
Spartacus, come on.
What I would say though, even just reading through Hack, which obviously it's a 7-part drama, it brings back to light It's the abuse of power, it's corruption, it's lies. And what worries me as an individual with, you know, a wee boy growing up into this world is just how corrupt it is, Cal. You know, where you're thinking about the Met and how they were in the pocket of the press, and then you bring politics into it. And every single time now, it gets us to the point where it makes you paranoid. So when something happens, some event that happens that's reported upon, you're like, right, what really happened? Why did it happen? But this brings it all home to me. There is a lot of kind of darkness to the world of politics, propaganda, the police, the authorities, isn't there? And this really brings it to light.
But it sort of eroded trust, don't you think? And we were talking this earlier because I can't listen to the news anymore. I just put the radio on in the morning and listen to the news. I can't. I just feel heavy, you know, when I listen to the news in the morning. So I can't listen to it. And I think that's to do with trust, not trusting where the truth is, who's going to seek the truth, who's going to give us the truth, you know. And I think at the moment, yeah, I mean, it was after the referendum when I saw the BBC interviewing Acsom and then lying about it. They had it live at lunchtime. And then in the evening news, they were lying about what had happened at lunchtime. So I was like so appalled by that. I couldn't, because I sort of trusted the BBC News all my life, you know. And so that was a great shock to me.
Yeah.
There is a bit of a living contradiction here, Paul John, because the point that Cal's made about former stories and perhaps trusting the BBC up until 2014. What you've got here is an investigative journalist who was ridiculed, who was completely and utter blanked by all of the other press and all the other media.
Yeah.
There were accusations about Mirafi Sheed and all the rest of it. And he stuck with it. And by the way, if you read the book, you'll see that we've got to thank Apollo for this, because Apollo is his source. Now, he's not revealed his source, but whoever Apollo was contacted Nick and gave him the information that set him on a 6-year trail, a 6 years of his life trail that led to the downfall of these people, 7 police investigations, several people put in jail, the closure of a 168-year-old newspaper, right? A fantastic story. So on the one hand, and I share Cal's absolute detestation for the media, the mass media, the corporate media. On the other hand, journalism's about truth-telling. That's what it should be about. If you're not a truth-teller, you shouldn't be a journalist. You should just be a PR man for the big power. That's all they are. Nick tried to be a truth-teller, and that's the beauty and the strength of this particular story.
See, if I come back to you, Tommy, I've got to know you over the years, and I can confirm from playing football where you do have a very hairy chest. Sorry, just for the record. But for me, you're a family man. You're a man who is true to your political beliefs. What is the lasting damage? Because you've just reeled off a list of your family members who were tapped. What's the lasting damage of what they did to you?
I think the lasting damage is the image and the portrayal of me. I'm, you know, people will say, he's nothing but a liar, he's nothing but a cheat, don't trust Sheridan. And politically, obviously, that's damaging. You've got to remember, I'm somebody who wants to change society. I want the oil and gas of Scotland to be owned and controlled by the people of Scotland. I want rid of nuclear weapons. I'm quite dangerous in that I don't want things to go the way they are. And what these people do is they destroy people who are potentially dangerous. If you think of Arthur Scargill and how he was fitted up, you think of Tony Benn and what they did to Tony Benn, anybody that speaks out of the box, do them in, make them sound like lunatics, make them isolated. And that's effectively what these people do. And they do it very well. They're very, very powerful. So from my point of view, that's a lasting piece of damage. But there was one thing I remember saying in the court case, the original 2006 court case, the one that I won for defamation against these people. And I said it to Bob Bird, who was the editor of the News of the World at the time. I said, "Yous have done everything you can to break my relationship with my wife, but you've failed and you always will fail." And I can still hold that dear because Gail and I love each other. We will never be broken by these people, and that's something that they will never understand. So Sure, they've damaged me in terms of reputation and everything else, but they've no damaged my relationship. It's still a rock.
Brilliant. I'm delighted to hear that, Tommy. Now, Tommy Sheridan is a study for an actor like yourself, Cal, but he's not the first person, the real person that you have played. I was just having a wee look there at the old Celtic jerseys books, and there is a jersey in there that was worn by Paddy Crerand in the early 60s.
Yeah.
Now, you were born in the early 60s, yet you went on to play Paddy, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah. It's a film about George Best, written by John Lynch, who played George Best. And I got to play Paddy Crerand, and I met Hugh McIlvanney before I played him, and he said, oh, it was in the French House in Soho, little bar in Soho. He goes, oh, you're playing Craggy Crerand. So, so I got to meet him. I had a laugh. It was, we met George and Paddy at the same time, and George turns to Paddy and goes, Cal's playing you. And they both laughed, you know. So I don't know quite what the joke was, but it was great. No, we met them a few times. It was a great experience. And in fact, at that time, I'd been playing football, hoping to be a professional footballer. But when I was 17, I got my knee badly smashed up, and I didn't play really anymore. Certainly for a good few years. And around about the same time I discovered acting. I went on stage for the first time a year later, and that's almost like replaced my desire to be a footballer. And at the same time, I stopped watching football.
Right.
So I sort of just gave up. It was almost like, I don't know, I was so hurt at losing the chance to be professional.
Yeah.
I just went, fuck it, I'm going to be an actor instead. Anyway, so I did this TV show called The Riff Raff Element, where I was playing a Man United fan. And then I went on to play Paddy Crerand. And I got to see loads of Man United games. And I even got to see Blackburn games when Kenny was a manager of Blackburn. And anyway, I was in a pub in Clapham, and my girlfriend at the time and her friends, and Red Army was carved into the table of the pub in Clapham. I went, oh, Red Army. And the guy who was a Leeds fan, he says to me, what's that about? He said, are you a Man United fan? I went, I suppose I am, yeah. And he said to me, have you not got a team from where you come from to support? And that really got me. That got me. And just at that time, we lost the final to Wraith Rovers.
Yeah.
And I was like, my calling, Celtic need me. And around by that time, my nephew in Glasgow started wanting to go to football. So from that date, I came up every fortnight to take my nephew to the Celtic games. And then in what was it, when the North Stand was built, at 96, 97?
Yeah.
I got us our season books, which we've had ever since.
Oh, brilliant. You know that bond that you get. I was talking about this earlier today, because I feel that the club is now at a stage where they've got to stop looking at us as customers. They've got to understand there's a difference between what football in your football team gives you, you know, if you compare that to going into a shop and buying anything, right? It's different. And I talk about my old fella, like you taking your nephew, my old man taking me, and the experiences that you share and the bond that you get from that experience, Tommy. And you're born into it. I mean, that's a cliche now, but it's true. I mean, there's no choice. And the club don't seem to get it now, Tommy. Your nephew will look back on those days. Some of them, you know, even in the football.
Listen, I talk to people this all the time. Yes, well, they don't get it, but a lot of people don't get it. It's like the day my mum died, I came home and I'd done all the stuff you're meant to do, all the organising stuff. And as I live in London, so I was in the family house, and my sister and her 2 children were living there. And I came back, and one of the family friends was in the house, and she was talking to my sister, and she said, what are you doing? What are you going to do now? I said, I'm going to the football. I'm taking Graham to the football. I said, son, go and get a scarf. And she went, you can't do that. Your mother's just died. And I said, You grieve your way, I'll grieve mine. And it was the best thing we could have done. And people don't get that. And the bond we have, because Graham's dad was never about. So it was like a father figure taking him to football and coming up every fortnight for the home games from London, you know. And it's the single strongest thing that bound us together, myself and my nephew Graham.
It's incredible because see that the emotive aspect of it, Tommy, I honestly don't think the people at the club at the moment get that, or they might have had it at some point and have lost it, right? Because we're being treated just as cash cows, or getting squeezed for season tickets and merchandise, and that's fine. That's part of supporting Celtic, but communicate with us. You know, there's an uprising right now, Tommy, and maybe 20 years ago you'd have been at the front of it. There's an uprising of Celtic supporters. And they're not happy with what is going on at the very top with the football club. We're talking about the abuse of power, corruption and lies. We could be talking about the Celtic board. And it's not just one bad transfer window. Tommy, can I just say, when you were on Acsom regularly, you stood up a lot for the board. So I think what I'll get from you is maybe a different take from my own. Where are you now? Because it's been a few months since you've been on Acsom.
I think if you recall, Paul John, one of my big disagreements with a lot of the fan base was the treatment of Neil Lennon, and I defended Neil Lennon. I didn't defend the board, but I defended Neil Lennon, and I think I was right to defend Neil Lennon. At the time, I felt a lot of the Celtic base, particularly the younger Celtic base, had nothing but success, and that had engineered a sense of entitlement, so that when you don't win things, you throw the dummy out the pram. There's no right to win things. You need to earn the right to win things. And the 2020 season was huge because it gave us the possibility of the 10. But it wasn't Neil Lennon's fault that there was no fans in. It wasn't Neil Lennon's fault that players weren't allowed to associate with each other and that some players had down tools for Celtic. I remember the start of the season, that particular season, and thinking, we're going to walk this. We had the Greek goalkeeper, number one. We thought, yeah, beauty. Oh, we've got the Greek goalkeeper. We had kept Edward. We had got Elanusi back. And then we signed Shane Duffy. You know, you think to yourself, oh, brilliant, we're going to do this. It all fell flat in his face. And Neil Lennon got the blame for it. I don't think Neil Lennon deserved the blame for it. So my defence was much more about Neil. I knew him personally. I think he lives and breathes Celtic, and I don't think he deserved the vitriol that he received. I don't have the same defence mechanism for the board at all, Paul John. I think the board lacks the ambition that the fans have. I think if you look at the number of failures at the time in relation to Neil, before when he was still winning trophies, I can remember when we all knew that Michael Lustig had effectively kicked his last ball and we needed a right back. We were desperate for a right back. We go out to AAK Athens, and Michael, unfortunately, fantastic servant at Celtic, but he was at fault for the goal away and he was at fault for the goal at home. But we never replaced Michael Lustig when we had to. I think your man Brendan had, is it Castillo, or the right back that he then took to Leicester? Yeah. He had him and he wanted to sign him. The board wouldn't allow it. The board has always refused to invest in the chance of success. They've always wanted the success and then they'll maybe put in some money. And of course it's cutting off your nose to spite your face, because you're ending up now not qualifying for the biggest cash cow in football in relation to the Champions League because they refuse to invest at the right time. And whoever runs the recruitment department, don't care who they are, Paul John, they need to be sacked. They need to be sacked, because what we've done in successive years now is not good enough, because we should be identifying players. And I don't care if somebody says, he's worth 5 million, and you know that he's only really worth 3 million. Because what we've been doing by delaying signings is we've been falling into that trap anyway. Yeah. Because we think, we're not paying that, we'll wait another couple of months. And then you go buy for them, and then they know you're desperate, and they still add on the couple of million. If you want the player, go and get them. Go and get them, and if you pay over the odds, you pay over the odds. We've already done that. The war we're doing at the news no working. We're paying over the odds for a lot of players. You think of Tunetke in the team.
I know.
You think his ability to go by a man?
Would he have created one chance?
Exactly, mate.
210 minutes?
Exactly. That mob get 4 goals put past them by Sporting Lisbon. 4 goals. We couldn't score 1 goal in 2 games against them. Come on. So from my point of view, the board have been utterly derelict in their ambition and in their duty to strengthen the team. Brendan has clearly lost patience. You and I met Brendan at the big charity game. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember when he came along to the Rock game. Didn't need to come. Didn't need to be there. And if he did come, he only had to come for 10 minutes. He spent hours.
He did.
Stayed afterwards on the pitch with the fans. I think the guy's genuine. I think the guy loves Celtic. And I don't think his love is matched by the board.
No, the one thing that struck me that day, Cal, was Paul Byrne, who's probably a bit of a left field Celtic player. Wasn't he famous? He never won trophies, but he was playing in this charity game. Tommy was playing in the charity game. I was just watching it, but obviously, did you score? Oh, it was a flying header.
Flying header, goalkeeper made an incredible save. Unfortunately, I could have got the call up for Brendan if that had went in, but there you go.
It looked good. We actually streamed it live, Cal, on the channel. But Brendan Rodgers called Paul Byrne over. You know, and he was like, oh, that goal you scored at Ibrox. So a lot of people say, oh, he's not really a Celtic fan. Well, I know for a fact he comes from a Celtic supporting family. But it takes me back to Paul Byrne's time, because you mentioned Wraith Rovers there. And it's a form of PTSD every time I think back to that. I went to school with a guy that saved the penalty in the semi for Wraith Rovers, right? Brian Potter. He saves the penalty in the semi-final because I think Scott Thompson had been sent off or injured. And it was against Airdrie, and Wraith Rovers get through to the final. You think this is meat and drink, you know, because they were in the first division at the time, second tier. And they beat us. And it was just, honestly, it was awful. And the thing, of course, that I'm getting round to, going full circle, was Gordon Brown's a Wraith Rovers fan. What is the relevance of Gordon Brown in this story? Because I was reading the other day there about, Doobie Scott plays him, obviously, in The Hack. What's the relevance of Gordon Brown in this story?
Well, what happens is Gordon is targeted by the News of the World.
Right.
And they got information about one of Gordon's children who has a hereditary illness. And they threaten to reveal this information. Now, this is medical information. How did they get it? Turns out they got it by illegally paying a member of the medical staff in Fife who shouldn't have given this information, illegally gave this information, and News International used this information to manipulate Brown. And very upsetting for the family, because the hereditary illness means that some of the other children could suffer from it, and it's a life-limiting illness, and they haven't told the other children yet, and these bastards want to run a story on it. It's immoral.
Yeah.
It's immoral. So Gordon Brown was targeted. I think he made up with them. I think he made up with them too easy, because he ends up going to certain events with them and all the rest of it. I'd rather he's just stuck to his guns and treated them with the contempt that they deserved. But when he's the Prime Minister for a while, and they've got a lot of power and influence, and they put a lot of pressure on him, they succumb a wee bit, and relations are thawed. But the episode that I imagine, because I'm sticking to the story, I don't know how it's portrayed in the actual drama, but how it's portrayed in the book is that they initially were wanting to use the information to effectively blackmail him and say, oh, well, if we don't run this story, we want you to tell us this, that and that, and we don't want you to put any restrictions on News of the World. We want you to, there was a big deal that was underway for News International and Sky, and we don't want you to refer this to the Monopolies Commission. I mean, it's just abuse of power, complete and utter abuse of power. And apparently Dougray plays Gordon Brown in it. So I don't know, it's a bit like us in terms of our scene or our part of the story. I know it's episode 5 of a 7-episode drama. And by the way, the way I'd listened to David Tennant talk this morning about the show, and the interviewer made the point to him that he's watched the whole thing. He said it was riveting, said he loved it. He said, but he watched episode 1 and then he switched on episode 2 right away and thought he'd pressed the wrong button because it seemed as though it was a different show.
Right.
And I think that's how it's going to be told, because episode 1 starts off with the old phone hacking. Episode 2 goes right into the Daniel Morgan murder case. And that's where I think the excerpts that Cal talked about the police and about the drama side of it, that's going to be episode 2. So it may be that each of the episodes has its own kernel. Who knows what episode 5
I think it's 2 concurrent stories, and then eventually they come together like that. But I think you mentioned earlier about we were talking about the Levinson inquiry and how it was halted by the Tory government.
Yeah.
So basically what they examined was the press, methodologies, ethics, culture, and then it was stopped. So what they haven't done is gone into the police corruption and possibly the political corruption as well. But when you're not saying that Brown has been trying to get it initiated again,
Brown,
second half of the Levinson inquiry.
the promise had always been Levinson won. The whole gambit of abuse of power is so big that the Levinson inquiry couldn't handle it with just one go. So the first part of Levinson looks at the corrupt journalist practices and the horrible decay of trust and standards within journalism. And it exposes an absolute rotten corpse as far as journalists are concerned, and the erosion of trust that you talked about earlier, Cal. And they agreed, because this is so big, we need a second inquiry. And the second inquiry needs to be into the links between the police and the journalists and the government.
Yep.
Why was all this covered up? Why did the Metropolitan Police sit with all this evidence and do nothing with it? Why did they not tell people that they had that there in the black and white? They knew everybody that had been hacked. They didn't tell anybody. Why? And of course, all the former Met chiefs all went on to get jobs with News International. Very, very high paying jobs, right? It was utterly, utterly, rancidly corrupt. And that was supposed to be Levinson too. And the Tory government have stopped it. Sadly, Sir Starmer, it's not opened up either. I mean, the only difference with these people between the Tories and Starmer is the colour of the rosette, because the political kernel is the same.
I think they were saying that it cost $5.5 million, and they were saying, "Oh, that's far too expensive." But that's peanuts. Peanuts, so you know.
For public inquiries,
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the tens of millions that they go into as well, Cal.
Totally.
See, whenever we're lucky enough to have someone from your profession on the show, I always talk about this incredible idea of a Celtic Genesis movie. We spoke to Peter Braun about a film that he's been working on for years and years, and I always say, who would you play? You know, so you're an actor, and I know you've already played Paddy Crerand, but who from Celtic's history would be the part for you?
I used to love Bobby Lennox when I was a kid.
No. What a
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, my favourite really was Kenny Dalglish, I have to say. But I don't know, yeah. It'd be great to play Kenny.
Kenny, well, here's a thing for you, right? So you play Paddy.
440,000. I still
Strange
remember.
feat.
Broke my heart.
terrible.
Strange fee, I've never understood that.
Theft.
Yeah.
I know, absolutely. So, right, so Paddy Crerand, right,
Yeah.
used to drinking a boozer down in Manchester, and there was a gang in Manchester, notorious gang called the Quality Street Gang, right? And he got to know some of the guys, and he would play a bounce game on a Sunday or whatever. I think George Best was involved in all this, but Paddy was involved with Manchester United at the time. They'd play a bounce game, and it was like guys for the pub, and George would sometimes turn up, and some of these gangsters, the Quality Street Gang, would play, right? And then Paddy Crerand comes up, so he's aware of the term. He comes up to Celtic Park and he's talking to Jock Stein, right? And I think they were in, you know, that green executive lounge that's above the main stand, used to be a press box. They're in there and he's going, "Oh, wait till you see this guy. Who's that?" His name's Kenny Dalglish. "Who's that?" That's Danny McGrain. And they were bouncing about the stadium and they looked like as if they were like as thick as thieves. And he goes, "They remind me of the Quality Street Gang." Right? And that's what it is, where it started.
Oh, it tastes what it's hell for, yeah.
And the Quality Street Gang gangsters were only so called because the Macintosh Sweeties did an advert campaign, right? You know, the tin sweets at Christmas. And it was, right, this one's a toffee. He's hard in the centre. And they created a gang out of the Sweeties, Tommy. And then when they came in all suited and booted once, right, because they were dressed like Bugsy Malone in the advert, who did these guys think they had? A quality sheet gang? And it came from Paddy, the man you've played. The man you've played.
Brilliant.
Oh, full circle.
Yeah.
So was that your team then, Dalglish and Danny McGrath?
Yeah, Danny was well. Yeah, it was great. I got to getting to meet Danny was wonderful. Just after a game one time.
Didn't pal Tony Curran, was it not his uncle that scouted Danny McGrath for Celtic?
I think it was his granddad.
His granddad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Spoke about that recently, didn't he?
Yeah. But I played with Pat and Evan and Billy, what's his name? But Pat and Evan played for Celtic Boys Club. And I remember there was the Glasgow 800 Cup. So Glasgow is 800 years old. I think it's now 850 years or something, I don't know. And so they had this, divided Glasgow, or the area, up into shields. We were the Lavin Shield. And Pat and Evan, Billy Davis, there was another professional, somebody made it professional as well, in the same team, the Lavin Shield, and we won it. And but a couple of years later, I was playing a trial for Glasgow Select team, and we played against Celtic Boys Club, and Pat was playing for the Celtic Boys Club, and I was a goalkeeper in those days, and he dribbled round me to score a goal. The wee bastard! He was phenomenal talent.
He scored like 100 goals a season for the Boys Club.
Yeah.
I read his book, Tommy.
Yeah.
And in the book, and I eventually interviewed, I had to ask him this question. He said when he was 9, he could do 10,000 keepy-uppies.
Wow.
And I'm looking at my boy who's almost 9 thinking, really? 10,000? But he was a genius.
Wow.
As a young player.
Very clever as well.
Shame
Very
no longer
clever.
supports Celtic.
Listen, you've asked there about who to play, and I know you've deliberately not asked me because you're very jealous of my shirt, because you did notice.
I noticed the squad number.
You did notice the squad number,
I did.
and this is actually one of CCV's shirts. A friend got me it as a gift, so I'd need to play CCV in this movie.
I've seen you in the football park, Tommy. I wouldn't say you were a defender.
Right,
More of a midfield player, Tommy.
No.
And were you always a goalie, Cal? Or did you?
After my knee, I tried to play. I played about a year later, and whenever I see a professional get a really bad knee injury, and Gascoigne's one of them, whenever they come back, I've got total respect for them, because I found that I had the fear. I played one game, went for a tackle, and I went, oh no, I'm done. So it was years later I began to play just with mates. We had a team of unemployed actors in London called the Waxers, and I played for them. And I always liked to play the Paddy Cretton role.
There you go.
Number 4. I always get number 4, holding midfielder.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that was my position.
His number 4 jerseys in that book. So it's the Shamrock jersey. Remember the Shamrock?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've got the blue strip I wore when Man United in the film won the European Cup.
Did you keep that?
Yeah, I've got it still,
Brilliant.
with a number 4 on it.
That's fantastic. I went to visit a pal of mine, Simon Weir. I think you might know Simon.
Yeah.
And his house was just everything that he had collected from the movie. Seriously, mannequins and costumes and all that. I love all that kind of stuff. So tell us, where are we going to watch The Hack? Because I've been reading a lot about it. The cast looks tremendous. I believe it's going to be on ITV. Is that right?
ITV starts at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. Obviously, we're talking here on the Monday. I think you're going to try and turn the show round so that it'll be out before Wednesday.
No pressure.
No pressure on our cameraman, but hopefully he'll turn it round, and people will hopefully watch this on Tuesday night and look out for the Wednesday night at 9 o'clock for the start of The Hack. And then, as I say, it goes on for 7 weeks. Consecutively. I think ITVX, it'll be available after a week or 2, and you can binge on it, so you don't need to watch it consecutively. But the episode, we've been told by one of the producers that Cal features in is episode 5. Don't know whether it's a small part, a big part, whatever. Doesn't matter. We're part of it. And I certainly was very, very pleased to bring Coulson to court and get him to lie on oath and get him exposed as the phone hacker that he was and the criminal that he was. By the way, I called him as a defence witness, which is suicide when you're doing your own defence, because you're supposed to call people for your defence to help you. I knew he wasn't going to help me. Didn't matter. I wanted him in the witness box to lie, and that's what he did.
Brilliant. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure, Tommy. You're due a testimonial, but Cal, this is your debut, so thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us once again on A Celtic State of Mind. Join us next Friday at 6 o'clock for This is Acsom.